Lesson 30, I will solve division problems with a zero in the dividend or a zero in the quotient. All right, so we talked about some problems like this when you had your Zern lesson today. We talked about what happens when you have a zero. So in this very first problem, you can see here that we have a zero in our dividend. So let's see if we can go ahead and divide, and then we're going to check by multiplying and see what happens, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and write our problem out like we're going to go ahead and do long division. So we have 4, and we are dividing 204 by 4. So in this problem, first of all, you can see when we get ready to divide our hundreds, I can't take two hundreds and put them into 4 groups. So I have to unbundle my 200s and make this to 20 tens. So now, once I get to 20 divided by 4, it becomes pretty like a normal problem. So I have 20 tens divided by 4, which would be 5. And notice I'm putting the 5 in the tens place, not in the hundreds, because I'm not dividing hundreds, I'm dividing tens. So 5 times 4 would be 20. And I have no tens left over. So now I'm going to bring down my 4 ones. And 4 ones divided by 4 would be 1. And 1 times 4 is 4. That leaves me with a remainder of 0. So let's go ahead and check this problem really quickly using multiplication. All right, so I get 4 and 204, so it checks out. Okay, so this basically, even though it had a 0 in the dividend, it kind of worked out like a typical problem. All right, so let's take a look at this one because this is going to be a little bit different. We have 704 divided by 3. Okay, so we're going to start with our hundreds. So 7 hundreds divided by 3, that would give me 2 hundreds in each group, and 2 times 3 would be 6. And now I have 100 left over, and I have 0 in the tens place. I still have to bring that down because I'm trying to take this 110 and unbundle it with those ones. So 10 divided by 3 would be 3, and 3 times 3 would be 9. And I subtract, I'm left with 1. Okay, so I have my 110 left over. I'm going to add that to my 4 ones. So now I have 14 divided by 3, which would be 4. 4 times 3 would be 12. That would leave me with a remainder of 2 ones. So now we're going to check our problem. We're going to use our quotient times our divisor, which was 3. I'm going to pause this, and I want you to go ahead and check this and see if you get 704. Okay, so when I multiplied, I ended up with a product of 702, and then I added my remainder of 2, so I ended up with 704. All right, so let's take a look at problem number 3. I'd like for you to try to do as much of this problem as you can all by yourself, and then we're going to come back and check together. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem. So first of all, I have my 600s divided by 3. So that was 200s. And when I took 2 times 3, that was 6, and that left me with 0 hundredths. So then I brought down my tens, and here's where it got a little bit different, because if I only have 2 tens and I try to put them into 3 groups, I don't have enough to put in any groups. So I had to put a 0 in my quotient. So then when I subtracted, I still had my 2 tens, and I added that to my 7 ones, and then I took 27 ones and divided by 3, and that gave me 9. And 9 times 3 was 27, which gave me a remainder of 0. So then I was ready to check. And when I checked, 209 times 3 is 627. All right, so now I'd like for you to try to do problem number 4 all by yourself. Do as much of it as you can. If you get stuck, you can always press play. I do want you to make sure that even if you do this problem all by yourself, that you come back and check it to make sure that you did it correctly. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem. So I had 4 hundreds, and I divided them by 2, and that put 2 hundreds in each group, and 2 times 2 was 4, so I had no hundreds left over. When I added that, or when I tried to divide my tens, I had no tens. So because I had no tens, I had to put a 0 in the tens place. So then I was ready to subtract 0. When I was ready to bring down my 7 ones, then I could divide again. 7 divided by 2 was 3. 3 times 2 is 6, and that gave me a remainder of 1. So then I was ready to check my problem. So I took 203 times 2, and that gave me 406, and I added my remainder of 1, and that gave me 407. All right, let's take a look at problem number 5 and 6. Again, I'd like for you to try to do as much of this problem as you can, all by yourself. If you get stuck, you can always press play. Okay, so let's take a look at 760 divided by 4. So I had 700s divided by 4, and that would put 100 in each group. But 1 times 4 is 4, so that means that I would have 300s left over. So I added my 300s to my 6 10s, and that gave me 36 10s. 36 10s divided by 4 works out to be 9. 9 times 4 is 36, which equals 0. And this confuses some fourth graders because they think, okay, I'm finished. But you're not, because the answer is not 19. I have 0 ones, so I have to put a 0 in the ones place. That 0 is very important because it changes the answer from 19 to 190. I went ahead and worked out these zeros to show that I had 0 and I had no remainder. And then I was ready to check my answer. So I took my quotient of 190. I was dividing by 4, so I multiplied times 4, and that gave me an answer of 760. All right, let's try number 6. Again, I want you to divide as much of this problem as you can by yourself. If you get stuck, you can always press play, and I will walk you through the problem. All right, so let's take a look at this problem. I had 5,000s divided by 4. So that put 1,000 in each group. 1 times 4 is 4. That left me with 1,000 left over. I took that 1,000 and added it to the 100, and that gave me 11 hundredths. 11 divided by 4, put 2 in each group. 2 times 4 is 8. So that left 3 hundredths, and I added those to my 2 tens, and that gave me 32 tens. So then I took 32 divided by 4, which was 8. And here's again where some fourth graders get confused because they end up with 0 and they think that they are finished. But notice we have not divided the ones yet. There are no ones, so I have to put a 0 in the ones place. If not, I have 128, which is much different than 1,280. I went ahead and divided this out and just showed that I multiplied times 0 and I had no remainder. And then I checked my answer. My quotient was 1,280. I was dividing by 4, so I multiplied times 4, and that gave me 5,120. All right, let's take a look at 7 and 8. Again, I want you to try to do 7 all by yourself. If you get stuck, you can always press play. Okay, so let's take a look at this problem. So I had 3,000s. Well, I can't take 3,000 and put them into 5 groups. So I had to unbundle these thousands and make them hundreds. So I had 30 hundreds. 30 hundreds divided by 5 would be 6. So notice I put the 6 in the hundreds place and not the thousands because I'm talking about hundreds. 5 times 6 would be 30, which would leave me with 0 hundreds. And I took my 0 hundreds and added those to 7 tens. 7 tens divided by 5 would be 1. 1 times 5 is 5, and that gives me a leftover of 2. I added those 2 to my 0 ones, and that gave me 20. 20 divided by 5 was 4. 4 times 5 is 20, and that gave me a remainder of 0. So then I went ahead and checked my problem, 614 times 5. Now I know on your problem set, you have a problem 8, and you also have a problem 9, and you also have a problem 10. But we're going to skip those for time's sake because I want to take a look at problem 11 to see if we can go ahead and answer this application problem. It says find the quotient and remainder for 3,131 divided by 3. So let's go ahead and write this using long division. 3,131 divided by 3. I want you to go ahead and solve this problem and then go ahead and read B and see if you can answer that by yourself. And let's come back and talk about it. Okay, so let's take a look. So we have 3 thousands divided by 3, and that would be 1. 1 times 3 is 3, so that left me with 0 thousands. I went ahead and brought down my 100. 100 divided by 3 would be 0. So then whenever I added my 100 to my 3 tens, that gave me 4. 4 times 3 is 12, and I subtracted. That left me with 1. I added that to my 1, and 11 divided by 3 is 3, and 3 times 3 is 9, with a remainder of 2. Now, when I took a look at problem B, and I hope that you went ahead and read this, it said, how could you change the digit in the ones place of the whole so that there would be no remainder? So they're talking about this right here. How could we change this digit so that we wouldn't have a remainder of 2? So I went back to what caused that remainder of 2. When I added that 1, this became 11, and 11 is not a multiple of 3. What would make this a multiple of 3? Well, the closest multiple of 3 to 11 would be 12, right? So it says, how could you change the digit in the ones place of the whole so there'd be no remainder? I could change the ones place to a 2. How did you determine your answer? Well, when dividing, I had 11 ones. But if the ones place was 2, then I could divide 12 ones, which would be exactly 4. And then there would be no remainder. If you answered this by yourself and yours didn't sound exactly like this, but you decided to change it to 2, you could have changed it to something besides a 2. What if you changed it to something else that was a multiple of 3? Like what if you changed it to 5? Then instead of 11, you would have had 15, and that still would have given you no remainder. You also could have changed it to 18, which would have given you no remainder. So any of those answers would have been correct. If you chose to do those problems that I skipped and you'd like for me to check them to see if you did them correctly, I'll be glad to take a look at them.